Okay, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to join us out of your busy schedule. We're excited to have you. My name is Ryan Norton. I'm with Cloudreach. I run our North America AWS Alliance here at Cloudreach, meaning I support the AWS relationship. Today, we're really excited to have Josh from CTI Foods here to talk to you a bit about the program that AWS and Cloudreach put together to help CTI Foods not only evaluate AWS as a potential option for them as they move to the public cloud, but also to have the support and services to help Josh fully migrate his environment. And so you're going to hear from a couple folks today. Let me just advance a slide. So today's agenda is very straightforward. We're going to do some introductions, tell you who's on the call. We're going to talk to you a bit about AWS's proven migration approach, and we're going to have an open panel discussion with Josh from CTI Foods. So just a few housekeeping items first. Everybody's phones have been muted. However, we will have a little bit of Q&A at the end of the session. So please, if you have a question that you're worried about missing, please put it into the chat window throughout the presentation, and we'll address them all at the end. Or if you prefer to ask your question in person, please, again, hold all questions to the end. And we'll choose from the most common questions in the Q&A to answer. So on the call today, you got myself, as I already mentioned, Ryan Norton, Alliance Manager for Cloudreach. I'll be moderating this panel discussion. We've got Josh Stan, our guest of honor, who is the VP of Business Intelligence and IT at CTI Foods. We've got Ben Tizer, who heads Cloudreach's Head of Greenfield Sales here at Cloudreach. And then we're also honored to have Sean Lewis join us, who's going to give an AWS overview perspective. He's from the Worldwide Specialized Sales team, working specifically on migration workloads at AWS. So thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you for taking this time. And I assure you that the information for those of you who are looking to potentially find the use case to move to cloud, you will find this very useful. So first things first, I want to kick it over to Sean Lewis. As I mentioned, Sean's going to run through a little bit about how the migration and modernization services at AWS has been aligned to help customers just like yourselves. So Sean, can you go ahead and kick it off?
Sure. Thanks, Ryan. Can you hear me and see me okay?
We can.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate everybody making the time today. Wherever you're joining from, it's cool to see in the chat folks from all over the world that are tuning in to have this conversation about migration and modernization of different workloads into the cloud. So thank you for the intro, Ryan. As Ryan mentioned, I'm the director for our migration workloads team here in our worldwide specialist organization at AWS. And our team's charter is to help customers migrate out of their data centers, help customers move out of their co-location facilities, leverage the capabilities of the AWS cloud, optimize and right-size those workloads, make sure that the compute, the storage, the licensing, all those components are properly sized as you're migrating into the cloud and using the different capabilities that we have with our not only cloud native services, but within the compute family, the right instance types, the right instance families that are best for your workload. And then we also drive modernization of these workloads as well. More and more customers are coming to us asking for help as they look at modernizing their database platform, modernizing their operating system components, re-architecting applications, leveraging cloud native capabilities like serverless for agility as well as cost savings. And we'll talk a little bit more about that today as well over the next few minutes. So if we look at some of these drivers that are really pushing migration into the cloud, right? We've got a couple different areas here that I'll talk through, right? I mean, the first couple I think are pretty straightforward around agility and creating new experiences for customers, right? We're seeing companies wanting to move faster and being able to get rid of some of that tech debt and migrate into the cloud is going to allow them to be more elastic and utilize these cloud native capabilities that we have to build new things. We're also seeing a big driver around application modernization tied to a couple of things. The first is application compatibility. Some of these applications are simply no longer able to run on modern versions of an operating system. They're not able to be as agile, sometimes decoupling some of these dependencies between the operating system and the app are drivers for companies as they're looking to modernize digital transformation initiatives may require that they look to rationalize some of these applications and create a more efficient experience, which doesn't necessarily come as easily on a legacy application. We also see customers looking to get around or get ahead of end of support from different vendors, where if they hit the end of support date, they will have to pay some fees around custom security agreements for support and other things like that to be able to get security updates for these out-of-date versions of the operating system. Kind of ties into security and compliance as a key driver, right? I mean, the security model of the cloud is a shared responsibility model. There's security in the cloud and security of the cloud. And AWS treats security as job zero all day, every day. And we work closely with customers to continue to raise that security bar, both for AWS and for you as a customer of AWS, by taking advantage of not only our great security capabilities in the platform, in the core EC2 compute. For example, we have Nitro enclaves in the EC2 hypervisor, which allow you to provide some isolation with CPU and memory at the hypervisor level. But we also have great security services like WAF and Shield and Inspector and Macy and some other great things in the portfolio there too. If we think about the data migration, right, and really moving workloads into the cloud, we think about customers building data lakes. That concept of the data gravitating into the cloud, being stored in a service like S3, allows customers to slice that and analyze it and pull it into different services, do different things with it in a centralized fashion, which we're also seeing as a big driver. And then finally, of course, cost reduction, right? We couldn't leave that out. As we optimize, as we help customers reduce costs, a big driver to cloud is helping them reduce what we call that undifferentiated heavy lifting on IT spend, so they can reallocate that money back to things that matter more to their customers. Next slide, please. So AWS as a migration partner, is something that we'd really like you to walk away with here, as a good understanding of why we are the right provider to work with. And then also I'll give you a few quick customer examples from my migration workloads team. We picked a customer example here from each one of the pillars: Microsoft workloads, Oracle, SAP, and VMware Cloud on AWS. So if you look at AWS's customer portfolio, right, we have millions of active customers, and we have these big brands. These are a couple of examples that you see on the right here that have been migrating to AWS for the reasons that we've already talked about. These customers are looking to accelerate their moves out of their data centers. They're looking to optimize costs. They're looking to reduce risk. AWS has been a partner for these companies, helping them in that migration journey every step of the way, whether it's the AWS services, the professional services, the migration services, the cloud adoption framework, our partner ecosystem, working with great partners like Cloudreach. These are all great examples of reasons to partner with AWS. If you look at our tooling space, right, we've got native AWS migration tools as well as third-party migration tools in the ecosystem to help you. And then we've also got really just an end-to-end story that we'll talk about towards the end of the session here on how we're helping customers migrate that, like I said, encompasses all of these different pieces. And if we look at some of these customer stories, I won't go into all these in depth, but Expedia, right? Think about the ability to scale up and scale down based on elastic capability. We've also helped Expedia modernize a number of workloads. One of my favorite case studies is helping Expedia modernize from SQL Server to Aurora on AWS, our managed MySQL RDS environment, which is pretty cool, Postgres and MySQL. And then if you look at S&P Global as another one, right, leveraging VMware Cloud on AWS. And I call that one out specifically because we have this great VMware offering to run on AWS, where if you use VMware's tooling and management and orchestration and reporting, you can have that same experience in AWS with AWS Compute coupled with VMware, the best of both. And then finally, Microsoft workloads. So if you think about running workloads like Windows Server, SQL Server, AWS is actually the best provider to do that from a price performance standpoint, pace of innovation, our overall capabilities on the platform. We've been running Windows workloads on AWS since 2008 and have hundreds of thousands of customers doing really cool things with Windows workloads on AWS as well. Next slide, please. So a couple of quick stats just to kind of highlight, the benefits here around modernization. So if we look at some of the ROI numbers here, they're pretty astounding, right? I mean, 442% ROI when you run Windows workloads on AWS. That's going to come in when I show you this modernization slide that's coming up next around the reduction in spend as modernization activity accelerates. Over 5,000 active customers running SAP on AWS. Which is great to see that number increasing every day as more and more customers are trusting AWS with their ERP environment. Reducing IT infrastructure costs with VMware Cloud, right? Being able to leverage the benefits of compute in AWS with the VMware tooling that we talked about earlier. Database migration service is another cool thing, is a free offering from AWS where you can take a database from on-premises already in AWS, wherever, and migrate it to another offering, right? So you could go from, in this example, Oracle to Aurora, or you could go from SQL to MySQL or whatever, and use that DMS capability. So over 350,000 databases have currently been migrated to AWS using DMS, which is great. And then mainframe, which is a newer offering for us. We announced some of our mainframe initiatives at reInvent late last year. And you can see, we're helping customers reduce infrastructure costs significantly, 70% plus, as they look at modernizing and bringing their mainframe workloads to the cloud with AWS. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is one I want to spend a little bit of time on. This is the outcomes that we think about modernizing and like why we see customers doing it and the benefits that they see. So as we look at this kind of the progression here over time, we start with legacy workloads and we're driving costs down by helping to optimize and reduce on-premises dependency and bring the right types of instance families as the customer's migrating into cloud. So if you look as the drop in spend starts to occur, you see some of these milestones like hardware and software right sizing, right? I mean, typically we have an offering at AWS called the Optimization and Licensing Assessment, OLA, where we will come in and look at a customer's environment and give them insight as to how utilized their environment is from a compute, storage, licensing standpoint. As we look at that right sizing, we see a lot of great customer opportunities to reduce the provisioned amount of resource for the workload's actual needs instead of what it's been built for. We also see that cost to open source, commercial off-the-shelf software to open source migration, right? As customers are looking at these COTS dependencies, they're looking and saying, hey, this is kind of locking me in a way. What if the vendor stops providing support? What if the vendor can't keep up with my technology, infrastructure, platform design decisions? I want to take it more control of that. And so I'm going to look at migrating that to open source. Leveraging managed services, right? We have AWS managed service, AMS. We have a number of other providers that work with managed services to help customers continue to focus on what's core and important to their business and hand off some of those managed services, as well as leveraging core native managed services in the AWS platform, like relational database service, RDS. So you can use RDS with SQL Server, with Oracle, with some of the open source database engines like MySQL and Postgres, as I mentioned earlier, to be able to take advantage of those managed services. And then, of course, containerizing workloads and bringing them into a serverless architecture to maybe even eliminate the compute itself, right? And turn into more of a trigger-based model where as events kick off, you're taking action rather than having compute sitting there waiting for something to do. And then as the cost is reducing, you can actually see the white part of this here, improving velocity around innovation, right? So you see automation, offloading some of these operational activities, breaking down those monoliths, those big legacy applications, and figuring out how to turn them into microservices that interoperate together. Really embracing that DevSecOps model in the development process and automating CI/CD pipelines. As customers are taking action here, we're seeing that innovation increasing while cost is decreasing. So it's a win-win there. Next slide, please. So finally, just to wrap, right, with a couple of keys here on success for migration and modernization, some observations that we've noted working with customers on this. The first is to have a plan, right? Planning is always a great strategic imperative, and understanding what your application portfolio looks like, what you want to migrate and when, what the dependencies are, what action you want to take. Do you want to lift and shift that into AWS as is with infrastructure and then start to optimize and modernize? Do you want to start to do some optimization and modernization first? Do you want to go from your on-premises environment right into some cloud native services, or do you want to take a multi-step approach? These are all different things to consider and things that AWS and our partner ecosystem can help you with. Having an operating model on how to do this at scale is also important, right? We have service management frameworks. We have something you can use for free, the Cloud Adoption Framework. You can just grab that off the AWS site to help you figure out, okay, now that I've rationalized my portfolio and I know what I want to do, what is my plan going to look like? And then how am I going to execute, right? What am I going to move and when? How many workloads can I move per month, per week, per day? And what are those dependencies, and how can I kind of project manage that in a tight operating model? And then, of course, don't go alone, right? Leverage a partner with great partners like Cloudreach in the ecosystem that are here to help you with these different migration engagements that you've got going on or you're planning. Reach out, right? We want to help you. Our partners want to help you. We want to help you be successful together. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Ben.
Perfect. No, thank you guys thank you, Sean, very much. That's a great overview. And for those of you on the call, Cloudreach is really proud to have not only been an original partner with AWS going back 12 years to their very beginning, but we're also one of the only partners in the ecosystem that can do what we do with AWS. And we're about to have Ben Tizer walk you through the program that got CTI Foods started before we bring Josh up to the panel. So Ben, if you got a moment, could you talk to us a little bit about how we helped CTI Foods and other customers like them accelerate their AWS adoption?
Gladly. So thanks, Sean. Thanks, Ryan. As mentioned in the opening, my name is Ben Tizer. I lead the go-to-market team focused on cloud adoption here at Cloudreach. I'm going to spend just a few minutes providing some background on Cloudreach, an overview of the company, and an overview of our on-ramp offering, which is intended to help customers quickly, confidently, and economically begin moving workloads to AWS. After that, we'll be on to the star of the show, as Ryan mentioned, Josh Stan, CIO at CTI Foods, who recently completed both an on-ramp and full migration engagement with Cloudreach. So a little bit about Cloudreach. We've been an AWS Premier Partner for over 12 years now, and that actually puts us amongst the most tenured partners in the ecosystem. We currently have 11 AWS competencies with 2 more expected over the coming months, and carry about 700 certifications across our delivery organization. We group our services into 3 main areas: migration, modernization, and management, and deliver following what we call a SMART methodology, where everything is underpinned by software and incorporates really our decade of learned best practices. On top of that, we've got deep advisory expertise with industry experts to help customers who need help from a strategy before that execution phase. So next slide, please. All right. So over the past 3 years, this point, we've been in partnership with AWS as part of their OLA program that Sean mentioned earlier, optimization and licensing assessments. Under that partnership, we've delivered assessments to over 1,500 organizations to help them get started on their cloud journey. We've powered that partnership with Cloudimize, which is our software platform that automates the collection, analysis, and migration planning for customers who are looking to exit a data center and move those workloads to the cloud. One of the things that we consistently found in delivering those assessments is that many companies didn't have the internal capabilities to act on the data and insights that an assessment delivered, right? And so Sean mentioned, I think on his last slide, don't go at it alone. The ability to interpret and leverage the data that is provided as the result of an assessment, really that ability is what will determine the success of the next phase. And so when we realized that companies really couldn't take that data and continue on their own, that's what led to the creation of the offering, which we call On-Ramp. All right, so next slide, Ryan. Okay, so On-Ramp is a fully funded engagement that lasts about 6 weeks or 50 days. We break that engagement into 3 phases: an assessment phase, which is part of the AWS OLA program, a planning phase, and an adoption phase. And I'm not going to go through all of the deliverables in the boxes below, but for 2 weeks, we're collecting data and making recommendations on the right instance type, storage type, license requirements to support the observed workloads in your data center, right? And so that is the lift and optimized view of how you're going to take a data center into the cloud. We do all of this, right, after the assessment. We start to then focus on a single business application. And we go through, in the hypercare and on-ramp phase, a full migration plan and execution for that single business application. So we'll create move groups, we'll build an in-cloud design, we'll look at the firewall and DNS requirements, right? Everything that's needed to plan the migration of an application up to AWS. And then once that's planned, we'll actually work with you to execute that migration and validate functionality in cloud. Now, while the deliverable of On-Ramp is a single application migration, the value is actually much greater, right? The value to our organizations and to our customers and prospects, the organizations that we work with, is firsthand experience on what it's like to migrate your applications into your AWS environment, right? And that firsthand knowledge that you gain through this process is what builds trust in your ability as an organization to continue down the path of adopting AWS and migrating and modernizing your workloads. And we hope that it also builds trust in our ability to be the partner that you choose to work with as you continue down that journey. So On-Ramp, again, fully funded, 6 weeks, 3 phases. Assessment powered by Cloudamize in the AWS OLA program for an entire environment, right? So we collect the data for everything, and then we focus our activities and our attention after that on a single business application and migrate that with you into AWS. Next slide, please. Now, it doesn't stop with On-Ramp, right? On-Ramp is just a piece of the journey to get you and your organization comfortable with the process of migrating workloads to AWS. So everything from the first assess box to those red boxes in the middle, that's the On-Ramp component or portion of this big picture, right? And that lasts about 6 weeks. But the goal, right, our goal and your goal typically is not to move a single application to AWS. It's to move your entire estate, to exit your data center, start using more cloud native technologies, and transform how you operate your business from an IT perspective. And so following an On-Ramp engagement, we typically move right into a full migration project with our customers, right? When there's mutual interest and agreement to do so. And again, we're going to continue to combine the same market leading software, Cloudamize, with our professional service organization and really some deep experience and knowledge of AWS funding programs to ensure a migration project that is smooth, that is on time, and is on budget, right? And those are our goals for our customers. Beyond migration, we could do ongoing management, modernization, DevOps as a service, right? Everything that's needed to support that journey. But the primary goal with this offering is to help customers get started and migrate out of their data centers into AWS. All right. So I think that's my last slide. And now we have Ryan and Josh Stan going to have a short conversation about how, about their experience going through this exact offering that I just discussed with all of you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ben. I appreciate it. And Josh, again, welcome. We really appreciate always hearing from our customers, both AWS and Cloudreach, on really what is the real story from a customer perspective on the journey and the migration when working not only with an AWS partner, with AWS directly, right? So, Josh,
Yeah.
first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you came to be in the position that you were in to help us with this decision.
Yeah, so today I oversee IT at CTI Foods, and so I came from actually a corporate finance background, but this was my first IT rodeo. But we had there was already a project underway to replace our infrastructure in our data center, which was at a colo. And so when I started with CTI, that was already underway, and so we bought it. And I'm thinking, why don't we even look at the cloud initially? And so we had it on a roadmap to essentially move to the cloud at the next iteration of when we were going to have to buy new data center hardware. And so it was funny because Sammy Torkey from AWS had reached out in an email and said, hey, let's talk about the cloud. And so I had an initial conversation with him, and that got the ball rolling. And so AWS had brought in partners, Cloudreach essentially as a partner, and said, look, let's look at your environment. So we did the OLA, and then they said, okay, we can actually at no cost move up something to the cloud, one application. So we actually chose our dev environment to move to AWS, and I was just shocked how easy everything was. We gained, why did I want to move to the cloud? Reliability, scalability, cost effectiveness, yes. But the other thing I was looking at is from a project management standpoint is how much in resources is it going to take on my team that's relatively small to move everything to the cloud. And that's where it was amazing how simple everything was. AWS and Cloudreach brought everyone to the table to look at, what is it going to cost us to move to the cloud? What does it look like once we're there? And that whole process to move just our dev environment was super easy. And obviously then, as I mentioned earlier on the phone, they analyzed the entire environment, so they knew exactly all the other pieces and parts that needed to move up. And so after the initial launch of the dev environment, we put together a proposal and got approval internally for it to basically move the rest of our data center up to the cloud. And so that's been completed. So we did essentially a lift and shift of probably about 80 servers or so. So the ease of migrating was with all these different tools and programs that AWS and Cloudreach offer was super simple.
Great. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. That's a great overview of not only your guys' perspective, but really some of the business outcomes that you were driving toward. And really, whenever we focus on customer outcomes, the technical one is the one we often talk about, but the business outcomes are often more critical. So tell me, Josh, did you guys evaluate more than one vendor? And if so, what ultimately led you to the AWS and Cloudreach as your final choice?
Yeah. So we looked at Azure as well, and so we had calls with Microsoft and Microsoft partners. I think the benefit of this program, just from my experience of going through the cycles, essentially a sales cycle, was the fact of with AWS, they were with us every step of the way, along with Cloudreach, and all the different folks that they brought in to answer any questions that we had. Look at any products that we were going to, like we went to AWS Workspaces from Citrix and did that migration path. And really they were there to support you the entire way. What we found with other competitors was more of they get involved where they need to, but it was more pushed off to a partner. And I just didn't feel that there was a vested interest on both parties to essentially bring everything together and make it easy for the customer to migrate, because I liked having AWS. I felt like had skin in the game and wanted us to be successful, as well as Cloudreach. And so it wasn't just relying on that partner. It was a collaborative effort to make CTI successful. And that's really what drove my decision.
That's outstanding. And I appreciate that. Oftentimes success in a project as big as this one, success depends on having not only the right landing area, landing zone to be, to steal an AWS term, but to also have the right guidance to get you to where you're going to go confidently, so that you can have a better ultimate outcome with the platform that you choose. So I appreciate that. But Josh, tell us a little bit about, if you don't mind, some of your engagement thus far with both AWS and Cloudreach throughout this process. Feel free to share any of the things that you feel anybody on this call would be interested in knowing about. But tell us a little bit about the experience, as I believe we're drawing to a close on your full migration.
Yeah, so yeah, we're drawing to a close on the full migration, but I think it depends on the needs of what your company needs in the business, because the approach we took was, let's do a lift and shift, and let's in some instances let's use some different technologies. So basically, migrate to RDS. So right now we have a SQL backend for our ERP system, and that's running in EC2. But we said, let's take that to the managed database service RDS. And so that's the last step in this project. But looking at the overall lift and shift, so they outlined, Cloudreach outlined 6 weeks to basically evaluate the environment and move one test application, let's say, up to the cloud. But the funny thing is you've already done that evaluation then over the first 2 weeks. So literally then the actual move of all the additional servers, assuming you got approval and everything like that, it's really, you can probably do it in about 4 to 6 weeks of additional time to actually do just that lift and shift to get it all up. And that's where, I was surprised at just how easy everything was. And I can't stress it enough, the simplicity of moving and migrating everything to the cloud, and the overall impact to the company from a downtime perspective was negligible, because we did it during an outage window and essentially did it in 3 phases, and so you had maybe a 25 to 30 minute downtime on each phase. So we just planned that on the normal outage cycle, and there was really no impact to the business at all. And then from there, what we got was you have better reliability then with all the infrastructure that's in AWS. And we chose to optimize once we got into AWS, because that was one of the things I know Sean was talking about is, do you optimize before you go or after you go? And the great thing is essentially AWS, you're and any of the cloud environments, but you're pay as you go, and you're only paying for what you use. But we decided, let's bring our existing environment how it is, but we've already been able to reduce our server count by almost 10% with what we brought into AWS by optimizing other services and environmental structures to reduce the server count in what we have in AWS. And so from that cost effectiveness, you never stop. You always want to keep improving your cost and still maintain the performance that you're getting to the business. And that's where we're using Cloudreach as an MSP. And they also provide us with different cost optimization strategies. And as we migrate, I mean, that was the next thing that we looked at is, okay, how do we optimize our costs? And all those tools are especially now with staying on with Cloudreach on the MSP front, has been great to really start to hone in and say, okay, here's where our costs are going to be at going forward. And then we still have projects where we can optimize further.
Yeah, no, that's great. One question we have in the chat is from one of the participants is, what were the main challenges that you faced during the migration, and how did you overcome them?
Okay, yeah, so I think, some of the challenges, I think one was honestly selling the business on why we needed to move to the cloud. Everyone has heard about the cloud. Everyone is moving to the cloud. We were, a mid-market business essentially, and a manufacturer, which tends not to be on the cutting edge of technology, let's say. And so part of that was saying, well, we just bought new hardware for our data center. How can we justify moving to the cloud? And so, but we did it, and we did a cost analysis of, what it costs us to get out of the colo, how we could basically save money on the overall management of the platform as well, and utilizing Cloudreach as an MSP, and what that gave us from not only, think of like a system admin type role, but also then on the on the security side, we were more secure. And so obviously one of our major suppliers got ransomware last year. And so the company will go unnamed, but we're in the food business, so you can probably figure it out. And that's where it really drove this kind of worry of how do we secure our environment? How do we know that we're using best practices throughout? And the challenges that we really had, honestly, was once we sold the business on, yes, we need to move to the cloud. It was really, I didn't have to worry about much of anything, because all these tools that come with the OLA and the whole on-ramp program that Cloudreach is running basically walk you through step by step of here's what we're going to do, here's why we're going to do it. And again, having AWS and Cloudreach there, they'll answer any questions. So we had a technical resource from AWS, we had a sales resource from AWS, and then we also had the Cloudreach folks. And so I felt so fully supported every way, or all along the way, I would say. And that's where there weren't really any big obstacles on the actual lift and shift piece of it, because we had mapped everything out. We knew exactly what it was. Now, one of the issues that we ran into is we didn't actually analyze the entire environment. We didn't just say, hey, go at it, and here's all of our IP addresses for servers, not only in the data center, but also looking on-prem. So as we look, what are the next steps for us? Part of that will be moving the on-prem environment up to AWS. That's at our plants. So we have a couple servers at each of our plants that run things like PLCs and some other reporting tools on there. But that's one where we want to end up moving all that to AWS as well. And so we're looking at AWS local zones and things. But had I done it all over again, I would have said, hey, look at our entire environment, not only our data center, and look at everything, just so we had the tools in place to say, let's just move it all.
No, that's great. And I've often said having the power of the right partner and the right platform will always help you be more successful. So I'm really pleased to hear you say that, because oftentimes our greatest value is in helping take the burden off of folks like yourself who have a lot at risk in making a decision like this. So again, having the right partner, having the right solutions, and being able to land effectively, and ultimately hopefully make you and your company look good and have a better outcome is always what we're trying to do. We have some other questions in the panel that might be geared more towards Ben and Sean. We have the first question came in terms of, how is on-ramp different from migration evaluator plus a migration readiness assessment plus POC? Ben, you might want to take that one and the one above it, where the same person asks, what is the bottleneck for on-ramp and big picture flows? For example, people skills, customer pipeline, network bandwidth, money, and even coffee, which is super important to all of us on the call today. So Ben, that seems like a question I could gear toward you.
Sure. So on the first question, I'm just trying to find it in the chat. But how is on-ramp? Yep. Different. So the migration evaluator and MRA and a POC, right? So those are components very similar to tools and processes that we've built into the on-ramp offering, right? So there are, but the value, in my opinion, of on-ramp is the seamless way in which we bring the tooling, the people, and the knowledge together to deliver the outcome for our customer. And so in other engagements, in other organizations, other partners even perhaps, you may work with party one for the assessment and then go do an MRA, and then or work with Amazon for an MRA, migration readiness analysis, and then try and do a proof of concept on your own, right? And you as the consumer need to figure all of those pieces out, right? We've in on-ramp packaged those activities together using slightly different tools. So we use Cloudamize, we use MGN, and some other first-party proprietary tools that we've developed to automate this process to make it a single offering, not 3 offerings with 3 different groups potentially supporting each. And so it's a packaged offering delivered by a single team from start to finish that separates On-Ramp from the tooling solutions that are out there that would align to each part of the journey. So that would be my response to the first question. On the second, the bottleneck, I don't believe they're within an individual on-ramp into full migration, right? There isn't a defined bottleneck, right? The bottleneck for us becomes scale, right? Because we deliver many of these at the same time continuously for customers. And so, we've done things like invest in a talent academy where we're taking, diverse groups of folks from different backgrounds and providing them, a first-hand real-world AWS experience and education. And then we transition those folks right into our business and have them start to support these on-ramp deliveries so that we can continue to scale and deliver this solution and others to our customers.
Perfect. Hopefully that answered your question, but for everybody on the call, we will provide contact information if you want to get deeper. With our last couple minutes here, we have a couple questions that I believe are going to be kind of geared at the whole group, but really Josh and the team here. What about your software development lifecycle? How did you migrate your CI/CD pipeline, and what benefits or challenges did you face? Did you guys build a CI/CD pipeline? Were you guys doing DevOps best practices?
Well, part of that, well, the developers ended up handling a lot of that, so I can't really speak too much to that. But I don't know, Ben, do you have more information on that one?
Not specifically, Josh. I don't, unfortunately.
Okay.
So
we can follow up on that one.
Rakib, we'll follow up with you on that. And then it said he also asked, or Rakib also asked, could you also please elaborate on what kind of security protocol was implemented in the environment? Also, was there any third-party security tool that was implemented for added visibility and threat protection?
So added visibility for threat protection. So part of what we did with Cloudreach on them being the MSP. So we are utilizing CrowdStrike on the servers. We also recently signed up with another third party as well to manage some more of the intrusion detection in our entire environment to improve our security, including our AWS environment. And so that's ongoing. The thing I looked at is I definitely want more security, and AWS is a framework as well that says here's what AWS is responsible, here's what the customer is responsible, and so we try to utilize best practices with that. And also, I have to worry not only about our AWS environment but the remainder of our on-prem environment as well, and so that's a multi-pronged approach on it.
Great. Sorry, guys. I hope I didn't just cough in everybody's ear. I feel like I did. Well, thank you for that. One last question we'll get into, and again, if we're not answering all of your questions fully, I'll place Sammy to your question. I'll place my contact info into the chat here, and you can reach out to me, and I'll get you connected with anybody at Cloudreach that we need to. But the last question we have is, how does CCOE play a critical role in the journey? In other words, how does our Cloud Center of Excellence play the critical role, and how did Cloudreach help to set it up and to drive through engagements? Is that included in On-Ramp? So my take on that, Ben, is we're utilizing our CCOE, our best practices to help customers with these cloud migrations. I don't know if you could say that's included in On-Ramp, but that skill set is for sure.
Yeah. It is included in On-Ramp from what I've seen, at least on setting up the landing zone and setting up security best practices on different roles and the IAM roles and really kind of controlling that and using the AWS best practices essentially, and that's what we've seen since we've migrated to AWS. Was we've gotten a lot more of a security posture and access controls in place. But I don't know, Ben, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think I'd just add that our on-ramp and migration delivery incorporates the best practices that we would advise any organization to implement as part of their CCOE. But from my perspective, setting up a full cloud center of excellence within an organization is sometimes separate from the migration execution. Doesn't need to be, but sometimes is. And that's really something that our advisory team really specializes in, to understand the current organization cloud maturity gaps, right, and help build that cross-functional team that's going to be the core of the CCOE going forward. And so, like I said, we incorporate our recommendations and our best practices for CCOE into our delivery methodology of both on-ramp and the subsequent migrations, but setting up helping an organization set up their CCOE could be slightly different and a separate engagement for us.
Perfect. Well, I know we're out of time, but what I will commit to everybody is there are a few other questions out on the session. I will make sure that we get back to answering each and every one of you. And if we need to, we can bring in Sean Lewis, but really want to take this time to not only thank Josh, certainly our esteemed panelist and somebody who we've enjoyed doing a ton of business with, and we appreciate your perspective. But second of all, I want to thank every single one of you who had joined the call today. I know taking an hour out of your busy schedules is never easy, but we always feel hearing from a customer and a customer's perspective can be more valuable than anything we could ever tell you. So again, I hope that this was a valuable session for you. I've had some of you ask to reach out to you specifically, so we'll do that. And then as a last note, if you have any questions at all, I've placed my email, which is just simply ryan.norton@cloudreach.com, into the chat. Feel free to reach out to me anytime and I'll get you connected with our folks. We are extremely proud to be an AWS partner in this effort. We're extremely proud to work with folks like Josh at CTI Foods, and we hope to work with all of you as well. So with that, I'll wrap this session up and we'll follow up with any additional contacts or questions that one might have. But again, feel free to reach out to us anytime. With that, Eliza, I think we can stop the recording, and thank you all for joining us and have a great day.
Thanks so much.
Everyone.
Bye.